So where does this leave the Keystone XL pipeline project? For Canada's petroleum producers, the Keystone XL injunction in Montana is a setback. For environmentalists and some Indigenous groups, it's a victory. We're going to hear from both sides, but first, joining me a little earlier from Calgary was Nick Schultz. He's with the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers. Mr. Schultz, thanks for speaking with us today.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Martin.
Okay, first of all, can we just get your general reaction to this court ruling in Montana today?
It does cause some delay for the project. The judge identified several areas where some additional analysis and work would be required, so that will potentially lead to some further delay in the project, which is disappointing. The pipeline is still needed, and TransCanada will be pressing on. So we're happy to see that that will occur. I wouldn't say that this is a victory for anyone, given that these delays in getting pipelines in service is costing all Canadians a great deal of lost revenue from oil exports and the revenues that governments collect on those exports.
Okay, if we look at what this court has ruled, I mean, there's probably two alternatives. One is that the government down there and TransCanada can try and challenge this and have this whole ruling thrown out, or else they could try and go along with the ruling. The court has ruled that the State Department didn't give sufficient justification for its change of position, and it's also ruling that the State Department should do a new environmental appraisal. It says that there should be more of a justification. Also a study about the viability, the economic viability of the project. Could that be a long, substantial delay? Is the better course, if you want to see the pipeline built, a simple challenge to the ruling?
We'll leave the decision as to which avenues to take to TransCanada, but looking at the actual issues that the judge identified, they're all quite specific, quite concrete. It doesn't require a completely new environmental assessment. It's a supplemental assessment that would pick up these additional items. It will add some time, but the items themselves are all manageable. The project remains economically viable. The additional justification that's required is something that is not insurmountable. So we would hope that the project will continue to move forward ultimately in as timely a way as possible.
You've tracked this toing and froing on the Keystone XL. I was reading 2 months ago, another Montana judge asked for another review of a specific type of environmental impact, a leak. The State Department produced that in under a month, submitted it, and then TransCanada says, well, yeah, we're good to go for next year. So you're thinking that this could be overcome, or these supplemental opinions could be provided within short notice?
This is similar to that other case that you mentioned where some supplementary work was required. The amount of time depends on the specific nature of the work and the ability of those that have to do it in a proper way. But we don't see it as insurmountable. And we need to hear from TransCanada as to how long that might take. But again, all of the items are manageable. And we look forward to the project moving forward.
We've heard, for example, a few months ago, we heard that TransCanada had lined up at least 500,000 barrels, I think, a year of commitment for its new pipeline for the Keystone XL. They say they've got those contracts already committed to. Would delays like this jeopardize any of that business plan?
We wouldn't see this decision impacting those contracts. These are very long-term contracts, and they comprise the bulk of the capacity of the system. Those contracts by themselves are the best indication there is of the need for the pipeline. Companies don't sign these kinds of very long-term contracts unless they need the capacity.
So what gives you the confidence to say that this is all surmountable and this is not going to be a fatal blow? Is it also the American administration, the Trump administration's commitment to helping this pipeline go ahead?
Well, if one goes back to 2014, the original environmental assessment said that the project was acceptable. It was the Obama administration that chose to make a political football out of climate change and use Keystone XL as a poster child in what was a broader political issue. The project was acceptable then, it's acceptable now, and the judge would like to see some more reasoning around that. But it's actually the current administration in the U.S. That took this back to the original factual record, which is that this is an acceptable project.
Last question. When you hear environmentalists and Indigenous groups say they feel that they've got the wind in their sails, that these kind of delays are all working in their favor, that this is going to be a war of attrition and this project will not go ahead, they can mount one delay after another, how do you respond to that?
It's sad to see people taking those tactics. We live in a world that will continue to need significant amounts of oil. They have chosen to target Canada, but the reality is the oil will be produced to meet that demand. And we would say to Canadians, we have among the highest environmental and other standards in the world. Why wouldn't Canadian oil meet that demand?
Okay, Mr. Schultz, I thank you very much for taking the time. Thanks for speaking to us from Calgary.
Thank you, Martin.